He thought betrayal would look like lipstick on a collar, a hotel receipt, or someone else's perfume in the dark. He never imagined it would look like a locked room full of family secrets and a wife who no longer knew how to let him in. Chicago in October knew how to pretend. The lake wind came sharp and clean through the streets, slipping between towers of steel and mirrored glass. Trees along the riverwalk burned gold and red while people in tailored coats hurried beneath buildings that reflected sunsets like promises. It was a city that understood surfaces. Beautiful ones, expensive ones, convincing ones. From the 32nd floor of a luxury high-rise overlooking the river, Nathan Reed watched the city turn orange at dusk while loosening his tie with one hand. Behind him, the apartment was immaculate in the way expensive homes often were when nobody truly lived inside them. Marble counters untouched since morning, a candle on the dining table that Elena lit for guests but never for themselves, framed vacation photos from Santorini, Napa, Vancouver, two smiling people preserved in curated light. Nate. Her voice came from the hallway. He turned. Elena Reed stepped inside, carrying her heels in one hand, laptop bag over one shoulder, hair slightly windblown. Even exhausted, she moved with a grace that made rooms adjust around her. "You're late," he said gently. "Quarterly review." She dropped her bag beside the kitchen island and kissed his cheek with practiced accuracy. "I texted. You texted at 7. It's 9 now." She glanced at the oven clock and gave a tired laugh. Jesus. Nathan studied her face, concealer still perfect, lipstick faded, eyes tired in a way makeup never fixed. "I made pasta," he said. "You're incredible." "No, I'm hungry." That made her smile for real. They ate across from each other at the long oak table, city lights flickering beyond the windows. Forks against ceramic, occasional conversation. Her team had landed a difficult client. His firm lost a bid on a museum expansion. The market was unstable. Rent downtown was absurd. Someone from college was getting divorced. Modern marriage. Nathan often thought sounded a lot like two competent people reading headlines at each other. "Elise from legal cried in the restroom today," Elena said. "Why?" "Her husband forgot their anniversary." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "That's tragic." She said men only remember dates that benefit them. That's slander. It's data. She smiled again. Then her phone buzzed face down beside her plate. She glanced at it automatically. Nathan noticed because she usually didn't. "You can get it," he said. "No." But she picked it up anyway. A message glowed across the screen, reflected briefly in her eyes. She typed quickly, then locked the phone. "Work?" he asked. Emergency pasta issue." She exhaled through her nose. Julian forgot to attach revised slides. Client call is at 8 tomorrow. Julian, new strategy manager. She twirled pasta absent-mindedly. Smart, chaotic, needs supervision. Nathan nodded once. He didn't know why the name stayed with him. Later, Elena showered while Nathan loaded the dishwasher. Domestic sounds echoed in the large apartment, running water cabinet doors, the hum of appliances worth more than his first car. He found her wine glass half full and poured it out. The bathroom door opened in a cloud of steam. Elena crossed to the bedroom in one of his old t-shirts, towel around her hair. "You're staring," she said. "I'm married. It's legal." She smirked. Debatable. He followed her into the bedroom. "Come to bed early. I need to finish notes." She sat at the desk by the window and opened her laptop. Nathan stood there a moment, feeling oddly dismissed by something as ordinary as posture. "You've been working every night. It's quarter close. It's always quarter something." She stopped typing but didn't turn around. "Is this a fight?" "Oh. Good. I don't have energy for one." He almost replied, then didn't. Instead, he changed clothes, slid into bed, and watched her reflection in the dark glass. The city behind her looked brighter than the room. At midnight, she finally came to bed. By then, he was pretending to sleep. 3 days later, they attended a rooftop fundraiser for a children's arts foundation, because success required supporting causes while networking with donors. Elena wore black silk and confidence. Nathan wore a navy suit and the expression of a man who knew how to shake hands for hours. "You two are couple goals," said a woman from finance. Nathan nearly laughed. Elena squeezed his arm. "We fake it well." The woman assumed it was a joke. Later, while Nathan spoke with a developer near the bar, he saw Elena across the terrace. She was laughing at something on her phone, shoulders relaxed in a way he hadn't seen at home in weeks. Then she typed a reply. then smiled at the screen again. Something primitive and embarrassing moved through him. When she returned with champagne, he asked lightly, "Julian surviving the slides crisis?" Her eyes flicked up. "Why?" "You mention him a lot. I do not. You do." She sipped. "He's on my team, Nathan. I didn't accuse you of anything." "No," she said softly. "You just wanted me to hear the accusation." The wind shifted cold between them. "I was kidding. You're bad at it." She walked toward another group before he could answer. That night back home, they brushed their teeth side by side in silence. Their reflections looked like strangers sharing expensive plumbing. When Elena went to sleep, Nathan stayed awake staring at the ceiling. Julian. A name. Nothing more. Yet he replayed the quick smile at the fundraiser, the private texting, the defensiveness. He hated himself for caring. He hated more that he suddenly did. At 1:14 a.m., Elena's phone lit up on the nightstand. One new message. She didn't wake. Nathan stared at the glowing screen until it went dark again. He did not touch it. But something had already been touched, something quiet, something dangerous. And by morning, the distance between them would feel 1 inch wider than the night before. Sometimes marriages did not collapse in explosions. Sometimes they eroded like shoreline, one invisible wave at a time. The first rule Nathan had always believed about marriage was simple. If you started looking for proof something sacred had already been broken. So he told himself he would not look. He would not count how many times Elena checked her phone. He would not notice the new softness in her voice when she said, "I'll be late." He would not hear the name Julian as often as he now did. He especially would not become the kind of man who measured love by screen brightness and timestamps. For almost 2 weeks he managed the performance. He went to work each morning at the architecture firm on Wacker Drive, reviewed renderings, corrected junior associates, attended budget calls, nodded through lunches where men discussed real estate like religion. He came home with groceries, cooked dinner when Elena was late, asked ordinary questions in an ordinary tone. "How was your day?" Did the client sign "want tea" and she answered with ordinary lies? Or maybe not lies, he thought bitterly. Maybe facts arranged to avoid truth. It was raining on a Thursday when the cracks became audible. Nathan had come home early with Thai takeout, balancing 2 paper bags and a carton of soup while shaking water from his coat. The apartment was dark except for the kitchen pendant lights. Elena. No answer. Her laptop sat open on the island charger plugged in, purse on the stool, shoes by the door. Then he heard her voice from the guest room, low, urgent. He stood still. "No, don't send that yet," she said, "because if they see it now, everything changes." A pause. "I know what I said, Julian." Nathan's grip tightened around the takeout handles. Another pause. "I'm trying to protect everyone." He should have announced himself, coughed, dropped keys loudly, anything civilized. Instead, he remained motionless in the entryway, listening to the woman he loved speak in a tone she no longer used with him. Then the guest room door opened. Elena froze when she saw him. "Nathan?" He lifted the takeout bag slightly. "Pad C-U diplomacy." Her eyes searched his face. "I didn't hear you come in, clearly." She ended the call and slipped the phone into her pocket. "Who were you protecting?" he asked. "What you said, if they saw something, everything changes," she exhaled. "Work stuff. Sounds dramatic for PowerPoint. It's not PowerPoint." He waited. She brushed past him toward the kitchen. "Can we not do interrogation before dinner?" I asked one question. "You asked it like a prosecutor." He followed her. "You were whispering in another room. I was on a confidential call. With Julian." "Yes, with Julian." There it was again, that quick flash of irritation, as if the problem were his noticing rather than her secrecy. She opened cabinets too hard, taking out plates. Nathan set the food down carefully. "You know what? Forget it. I'd love to." They ate in silence. The noodles were excellent. Later that night, Nathan sat in the living room pretending to read while Elena typed at the dining table. Her phone buzzed. She smiled before she even looked at it. The smile lasted less than a second, but he saw it. A private smile. Reflexive. Unedited. The kind people had when something in the world belonged to them. "Good news?" he asked without lowering the book. You smiled. She looked up slowly. "Am I being monitored now?" I made conversation. "No, you made inventory." She returned to typing. Nathan stared at the same unread paragraph for 10 minutes. He hated jealousy because it made intelligent people stupid. By the following week, he knew Elena's patterns better than any husband should have to. She turned her phone face down now. She took calls on the balcony. She started saying Julian's name less often, which somehow made it worse. There were new clothes, 2 subtle ones, silk blouses with tags still attached, a perfume she claimed she'd forgotten she owned, lip gloss reapplied before internal meetings. Maybe none of it meant anything. Maybe all of it did. The mind once infected could make evidence from dust. On Saturday, they met friends for brunch in Lincoln Park. Their table was full of polished people in expensive denim discussing fertility clinics, second homes, and the moral collapse of public schools. Elena laughed at the right moments. Nathan passed hot sauce. They looked by every visible measure successful. Then Elena's phone lit beside her mimosa. She glanced down and instinctively covered the screen with her hand. Nathan saw only one thing before it disappeared. "Jay Mercer, you're popular today," said their friend Chloe. "Work emergency?" Elena replied. Nathan smiled into his coffee. "Julian," she turned to him sharply. "Can you not?" The table went quiet for one painful second. Then someone changed the subject. Later in the car, rain tapping softly against the windshield, Elena stared out the passenger window. "You embarrassed me," she said. "I embarrassed you, yes. You snapped because I said a name. You keep doing this thing." "What thing?" "Making me guilty for something you won't actually accuse me of." Nathan gripped the wheel tighter. "Maybe because I'm trying not to sound insane." She laughed once without humor. That ship sailed. He pulled to a red light and turned toward her. "Then help me out, Elena." "With what?" "With why my wife acts like she has a second life every time her phone vibrates." Her jaw tightened. "My wife," she said quietly, "acts like she has a demanding job and a husband who has decided insecurity is a personality." The light turned green. He drove in silence. That night he slept badly. At 3:07 a.m. he woke to the glow of the bathroom under the door. Elena was inside. He heard murmured words. Not crying, not singing, talking. He got up and crossed the bedroom barefoot. The sound stopped. When she emerged, she looked startled to find him there. "You okay?" she asked. "Were you on the phone? So Mom—" "I couldn't sleep. With the faucet running, I didn't want to wake you." She brushed past him into bed. He stood in the hallway listening to the house settle around them. She had lied too quickly. That was what shook him most, not the content, but the fluency. The next Monday, Nathan did something he despised. He opened social media and searched Julian Mercer. There were dozens. Then one profile matched Elena's company. Mid-30s, dark hair, sharp jawline, MBA smile. Photos at conferences, rooftop bars, marathon finish lines. Comments full of easy charm. One picture showed Julian with coworkers at a charity gala. Elena stood 3 people away laughing at something outside the frame. Nathan zoomed in like a criminal. He closed the laptop immediately afterward, disgusted with himself. But the image stayed. Julian looked like the kind of man who belonged everywhere quickly. Nathan suddenly remembered being that man once. That evening, Elena texted at 6 last-minute client dinner. "Don't wait up." He stared at the message. No apology emoji, no details, no invitation. At 7:30, he reheated leftovers. At 8:15, he poured wine. At 9, he checked the location sharing they had once enabled for convenience and forgotten to disable. Her phone was not at a restaurant. It was somewhere in West Loop Stationery, an industrial block of converted warehouses and loft spaces. He looked at the blue dot for a long time. At 9:12, it did not move. At 9:26, still there. At 9:41, still there. The city outside glittered like nothing ugly had ever happened in it. Nathan grabbed his coat. He told himself he only needed air. He told himself he was driving nowhere in particular. But silence, once it fermented long enough, became something else entirely. It became hunger. And tonight, hunger wanted an address. The rain had stopped by the time Nathan reached West Loop, but the street still shone black beneath the streetlights reflecting neon signs and passing headlights in broken ribbons. Chicago looked cleaner after rain, as if it had washed its sins into the gutters. He parked half a block away and killed the engine. On his dashboard clock, 9:47 p.m., he could still turn around, drive home, shower, sleep badly, wake up and pretend to be civilized. Instead, he sat gripping the steering wheel while Elena's location dot glowed in his memory like an accusation. The building in front of him had once been a warehouse. Brick exterior, iron-framed windows, modern security keypad beside a steel door. The kind of place developers marketed as industrial authenticity for people willing to pay luxury prices. A woman in a camel coat exited carrying a yoga mat. Then 3 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. Elena stepped out of the passenger side. Nathan forgot how to breathe. She wore the navy coat he bought her last Christmas. hair loose, laptop bag over one shoulder. She looked around quickly, not guiltily exactly, but cautiously. Then the driver's door opened. A man emerged, tall, dark coat, lean frame. Even from across the street, Nathan knew Julian Mercer. Julian said something that made Elena laugh softly. He touched her elbow as they crossed the sidewalk. Not intimate enough for proof, familiar enough to wound. Nathan sank lower in his seat. Julian entered a code at the keypad. Elena slipped inside first. He followed. The door shut. That was all. No kiss, no dramatic embrace, no cinematic betrayal, just two people entering a private building together with the ease of habit. Somehow, that hurt more. He drove home in a blur of red lights and fury. At every stoplight, he imagined alternate versions of himself. One version stormed into the building, dragged the truth into the hallway, shattered whatever fantasy they were hiding in. Another version called Elena and asked calmly where she was. A third version laughed at himself for being paranoid and overreacting. But none of those men were real. The real Nathan parked in his garage, took the elevator up, and stood alone in a spotless apartment that suddenly felt staged for strangers. He poured bourbon without ice, then another. At 11:18, Elena texted, "Still at dinner. Long night. Sorry." He stared at the words until the screen dimmed. There it was, not suspicion, not insecurity, not imagination. A lie so casual, it fit inside 4 sentences. He typed 3 different replies. Okay. Where? Come home. He deleted all of them. Finally, he sent nothing. Elena came in after midnight smelling of rain and perfume. Nathan was on the couch with the television muted. "You're awake?" she said. "Apparently." She set down her keys. "You could have gone to bed. You could have gone to dinner." Her body stilled. For 1 second, he thought she knew. Then she said, "I told you. Client ran late." He nodded slowly as if accepting weather. "That's rough." She searched his face, sensing something but unable to name it. "I'm exhausted," she said. "Then sleep." She stood there a moment longer, then disappeared into the bedroom. Nathan remained on the couch until dawn. Humiliation was quieter than anger. Anger wanted noise, confrontation, broken glass. Humiliation made coffee and answered emails. At work the next day, Nathan reviewed structural plans while imagining Elena removing her coat in a rented loft. He sat through a design meeting while picturing Julian pouring wine into expensive glasses. He approved revised budgets while hearing Elena laugh in the dark. He hated that his mind supplied details so efficiently. By noon, he had made 3 careless mistakes, and 1 intern asked if he was feeling okay. "Never better," he said. That evening, he called in a favor. His college friend, Marcus Hale, worked in commercial real estate law and knew half the city's leasing market. "I need information," Nathan said. Marcus laughed. "That sentence usually comes before felony charges. Can you trace a rental unit?" "Depends why." Nathan hesitated. Marcus's tone changed. "Nate, I think Elena's seeing someone." A long pause. "Do you know," Marcus asked carefully, "or do you think I saw her go into a building with him?" "With him, coworker." "Then confront her." "I need facts first." "No," Marcus said. "You need courage first. Facts are what cowards collect so they can avoid difficult conversations." Nathan almost hung up. Instead, he said, "Can you help or not?" Marcus sighed. "Address Nathan gave it. I'll see what I can find. But for the record, this version of you is unpleasant." By Wednesday, Nathan had a name. Unit 4C, month-to-month furnished studio. Lease signed 6 months ago under an LLC tied to Elena's company reimbursement account. He read the message 3 times. 6 months. How long had Julian's name existed in his house before Nathan noticed it? How many dinners, trips, anniversaries, polite conversations had happened while another life unfolded in parallel? He went to the bathroom at work and vomited. That night, Elena moved through the kitchen humming softly while chopping basil. Nathan watched her from the doorway. She looked lighter lately. That realization cut deepest of all, what she asked without turning. "Nothing. You're staring again. I'm learning." She laughed. "About basil. About strangers." The knife stopped. She turned slowly. "What does that mean? It means I don't know who I'm married to." Her face hardened. "Then maybe ask better questions, and maybe get better answers." She set the knife down with deliberate calm. "If you have something to say, say it." He wanted to. God, he wanted to. "I saw you with him. I know about the studio. Tell me the truth before I become someone I hate." Instead, Pride spoke first. "Forget it." She shook her head in disgust. "You don't get to poison every room and then call it nothing." She walked past him. A moment later, the bedroom door shut. Nathan remained in the kitchen, breathing in crushed basil and failure. He began collecting things after that. Receipts from nights she claimed to be elsewhere, screenshots of location pings, photos from across the street of the warehouse entrance, calendar inconsistencies. He stored them in a folder on his laptop titled Taxes. Each new item gave him a burst of grim satisfaction followed by nausea. He knew how insane it was. He also knew pain often dressed itself as logic. Friday night he returned to West Loop, this time on foot. He stood across from the building beneath an awning collar up against the wind. At 8:03 p.m., Elena arrived alone in a rideshare. At 8:11, Julian came carrying a cardboard file box. They greeted each other briefly and went inside. No kiss, no embrace, just urgency. Nathan frowned. At 10:22, Julian exited alone, got into a cab and left. Elena remained inside. At 11:07, lights appeared in a fourth-floor window. A silhouette moved past the blinds. One person, her. Nathan waited another 20 minutes soaked in cold mist and confusion. If this was an affair, it was a strange one. If it wasn't, then what in God's name was it? When Elena came home near midnight, she found Nathan at the dining table with papers spread before him. Working late, she asked, "Learning from you." She sighed. "I can't keep doing this." Doing what? Living with someone who's angry about secrets he refuses to name. She took off her coat and walked to the bedroom. Nathan almost followed, almost confessed everything. Instead, he sat still until he heard the shower run. Then he opened his laptop and stared at the hidden folder. Proof he had told himself would bring clarity, but the more evidence he gathered, the less he understood. And somewhere beneath the rage, another fear began to form. What if the truth was worse than cheating? By the second week of November, Nathan had stopped pretending to himself. Whatever happened in Unit 4C was not normal, not innocent, and not something a husband should politely ignore while discussing grocery lists. He slept less, ate mechanically, worked in bursts of manic concentration, followed by blank stretches where he stared at CAD drawings without seeing them. Elena noticed, of course, but their marriage had become an ecosystem of selective blindness. "You should see someone," she said one morning while fastening earrings in the mirror. "I do," Nathan replied. "Every day." She looked at him in the reflection, then chose not to engage. That was how they survived now, by stepping around landmines neither would disarm. Marcus called that afternoon. "You need to stop," he said without greeting. "Good to hear your warmth. I'm serious. You sound unstable." "I'm fine." "You're tracking your wife, gathering screenshots, asking me about lease records. That's not fine." Nathan leaned back in his office chair and watched gray clouds gather over the river. Did you ever think someone you loved could lie to your face repeatedly and still ask for trust? Marcus was quiet. Then, yes. Nathan hadn't expected that. "And what did you do?" "I asked one hard question early," Marcus said. "You're asking 100 easy ones late." The line went silent for a beat. Then Marcus added, "Don't break into that studio." Nathan straightened. "Why would you say that?" "Because you've become predictable. I'm not breaking in. You're already halfway there." Marcus hung up. Nathan told himself he only wanted closure. He repeated it while ordering coffee, while sitting through meetings, while driving downtown through evening traffic. Closure, a clean word for ugly intentions. At 7:36 p.m., he parked in West Loop with a baseball cap pulled low and gloves in his coat pocket. The air smelled of wet concrete and restaurant smoke. Young couples moved between bars laughing into the cold. Delivery bikes cut through intersections like sparks. The building stood indifferent as ever. He had learned the rhythms now. Elena usually arrived after 8. Julian varied. Tonight, neither had come yet. Nathan crossed the street before courage could fail. The front entry used a keypad, but tenants exiting for dinner made security mostly ceremonial. He waited beside the bike rack until a man carrying takeout pushed through from inside. Nathan caught the door. "Thanks," he said. The man barely looked at him. People in cities survived by minding their own business. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of bleach and cedar, polished concrete floors, mailboxes, elevator at the far wall. Nathan's pulse thudded in his throat. He took the stairs. 4th floor, a narrow hallway with exposed brick and matte black doors. 4C. He stood before it, hearing nothing beyond the frame. This was madness. He knew it with complete clarity. Then he saw the spare key, taped beneath the fire extinguisher cabinet 3 feet away. Not even hidden well. Temporary. Convenient. His stomach dropped. They trusted no one would be looking. He peeled it free with shaking fingers. The lock turned softly. Nathan entered the room where he believed his marriage had died. He was ready for perfume, for silk sheets, candles, expensive whiskey-framed art chosen to impress, for women's shoes kicked aside in laughter, for traces of bodies and rehearsed intimacy. Instead, he found fluorescent ceiling lights and silence. The studio was barely furnished. One industrial desk, two folding chairs, a couch still wrapped partly in delivery plastic, a mini fridge humming in the corner. No bed, no romance. No sign anyone had ever tried to be comfortable there. He stepped farther in. The walls were covered, not with paintings or mirrors, but documents. Printed photographs pinned in clusters, family trees sketched with marker, copies of birth certificates, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes connected by red string in places so cliché it almost seemed staged. Nathan stared. A large corkboard held 3 names in bold letters: Richard Vale, Catherine Vale, Vale Holdings Trust. Below them were dozens of smaller names, dates, arrows, addresses. Another wall displayed old photographs, a young woman holding a baby outside a motel, a teenage girl in a thrift store prom dress, a boy around 12 standing beside a rusted pickup truck, a man in a suit exiting a courthouse face circled in black marker. Nathan moved closer. His skin went cold. The teenage girl was Elena, younger, thinner eyes already guarded. The boy. Different age, same jawline as the man circled in marker. Julian. What the hell? He turned slowly through the room, legal files stacked on the desk, DNA testing brochures, envelopes postmarked from Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, spiral notebooks full of names and dates. This wasn't an affair nest, it was an investigation. But into what and why had Elena hidden it from him? He picked up a letter lying open beside the desk. The handwriting was shaky feminine. He promised to come back after Christmas. He said he'd send money once things were settled. Then the number stopped working. Nathan put it down immediately, suddenly aware he was trespassing not just physically, but emotionally. There were lives in this room, wounds, history. Then he saw a framed photo turned face down near the window. He lifted it. A much younger Richard Vale, handsome, wealthy-looking silver at the temples, stood beside a smiling woman in pearls at what looked like a charity gala. On the back, written in marker, "He built everything by erasing us." The apartment door unlocked behind him. Nathan froze. Footsteps entered. He turned. Julian Mercer stood in the doorway holding a cardboard file box. For one stunned second, both men simply stared. Julian recovered first. "You've got to be kidding me." Nathan dropped the frame onto the desk. "What is this?" Julian set down the box slowly. "An illegal entry, apparently. Don't play smart with me. I'm not the one standing in a locked room like a suburban Batman." Nathan stepped forward. "Are you sleeping with my wife?" Julian's expression shifted from irritation to disbelief. "That's what you think this is. You disappear here together. She lies about where she is. You think I'm insane?" Julian laughed once harshly. "No, I think you're late." "Answer me." "No." Nathan grabbed his coat front. Julian shoved him back hard enough to hit the desk. Papers scattered. "Touch me again," Julian said quietly, "and whatever sympathy I almost had disappears." Nathan's chest heaved. "Then, tell me why Elena is here." Julian looked around the room, jaw tense. Then he said the last thing Nathan expected. "Because she belongs here more than either of us." The door opened again. Elena stepped inside carrying a grocery bag and stopped dead at the sight of them. Papers everywhere. Nathan flushed with rage. Julian rigid near the doorway. For a moment nobody moved. Then Elena's face emptied of color. "Nathan," she whispered. Not guilty, not ashamed, terrified. And Nathan realized with a dread sharper than jealousy that he had just broken into a secret he did not understand. For several seconds no one in the studio spoke. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Papers rustled on the floor where Nathan had knocked them loose. Outside the 4th-floor window, the city moved on in strips of headlights and sirens, indifferent to private disasters. Elena set the grocery bag down slowly. "What did you do?" she asked, but not to Nathan. Julian exhaled through his nose. "I came in and found your husband auditioning for a crime documentary." Nathan ignored him. His eyes stayed on Elena. "You lied to me." Her throat moved once. "Nathan." You lied for months, and you broke into a private space. That private space belongs to my wife." "No," Julian said sharply. "It belongs to history." Nathan turned. "Stay out of this. I've been in it longer than you, Elena." Nathan said, voice rising, "Tell me what this is." She closed her eyes briefly as if fatigue had become physical weight. Then she looked at Julian. "Just say it," he said. She hated him for that, in the moment. Nathan could see it. But beneath the anger was something older than irritation, something familial in its ease. Elena faced her husband again. "Julian is my brother." The sentence entered the room in rearranged gravity. Nathan blinked once. "What?" "My half-brother," Julian corrected dryly. "Let's not overstate anyone's commitment." Nathan stared from one face to the other. Now that the idea existed, similarities rushed forward, cruelly obvious. The same sharp cheekbones, similar eyes when guarded, a matching tension in the jaw when angry. "No," Nathan said automatically. "No." Elena folded her arms tightly across herself. "Yes." He laughed once, small disbelieving. "That's insane." "It's inconvenient," Julian said. Different word. Nathan looked at the walls again. The names, the files, the photographs of strangers who were not strangers. Richard Vale. The man circled in black marker. Their father. Nathan sat down heavily in one of the folding chairs. He had imagined many endings to this story. Elena confessing, Elena denying, Elena crying, Julian smirking. A lawyer, a divorce. He had not imagined siblings. He pressed both hands over his mouth. When he asked finally, Elena's voice softened despite everything. 3 years ago. You knew for 3 years I knew of him 3 years ago. I met him in person 8 months ago. At work. She nodded. Nathan looked at Julian. You took a job at her company. Julian shrugged. I took a job where I knew she worked. You stalked her. I researched her. Those are synonyms. Julian gave him a tired look. I wanted to know if she was real. Elena stepped in before Nathan could respond. He sent me a letter first, through legal mail, with documents. She moved to the desk, pulled a worn envelope from a folder, and handed it to Nathan. Inside were copies of an old birth certificate, photographs, hospital records, a private investigator's report, and a handwritten note. I think we have the same father. I'm sorry if this destroys something peaceful. It already destroyed enough for me. Nathan read it twice. His anger shifted shape but did not lessen. You should have told me. Elena looked away. Yes, she said quietly. Julian opened the grocery bag and pulled out bottled water as if revelations required hydration. Nathan almost laughed again. So all this, he gestured to the walls. You two have been playing detective. We've been documenting fraud, Julian said. Don't romanticize yourself, Elena snapped. It's literally documents. She ignored him. Nathan frowned. Fraud? Elena walked to the corkboard and tapped the name Richard Vale. You know Vale Holdings, Nathan did. Chicago old money, real estate, private equity, philanthropy, gala photos in magazines. This man, she said, voice flat, spent decades building a public legacy about family values and generational integrity, Julian added, while privately abandoning women and children across 3 states. Nathan looked at him sharply. How many? Julian met his eyes. So far, 4 confirmed children, maybe more. The room tilted. Elena and I found each other because one of the others died last year without knowing the truth. Silence followed that. Nathan swallowed. Jesus. Julian nodded once. Yeah. Elena sat on the edge of the desk. When I was 12, my mother told me my father left because he was weak. She said he sent money twice, then vanished. She never said his name. Her voice was steady in the careful way of someone holding back collapse. When Julian contacted me, I thought it was a scam. Then I saw the photos. I saw his face when he was young. She touched her own cheek unconsciously. I knew. Nathan watched her with a pain different from jealousy now. How could you carry this alone? She gave him a sad look. I didn't carry it alone. She glanced at Julian. There it was. The second wound. Not adultery. Exclusion. You trusted him more than me, Nathan said. Julian rolled his eyes. This again. Elena stiffened. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. I barely knew how to tell myself, but you told him, because he was inside it. Her voice cracked across the room. Nathan fell silent. Elena stood. You think this was exciting, sneaking around with some mysterious man? Tears brightened her eyes but did not fall. I was meeting the only person who understood what it means to discover your entire childhood was built on missing information. You had me. I had a husband who loved certainty. The words landed cleanly. Nathan recoiled as if struck. She continued softer now. You love plans, structures, timelines, explanations. You love me polished, composed, capable. She touched her chest. I did not know if you could love the girl whose father discarded her. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out, because some part of him feared she might be right. Julian cleared his throat awkwardly. For what it's worth, he said, I told her to tell you. Nathan looked up. Elena glared at Julian. You also told me he'd react like a prosecutor. Still might. You two bicker like siblings, Nathan muttered. We're overachievers, Julian said. Despite himself, Nathan almost smiled. It vanished quickly. He rose and walked to the wall of photographs again. There was Elena at 16 in a diner uniform, Julian at 14 holding a toolbox, a third child, a girl with braces he didn't recognize, lives built in fragments while one wealthy man hosted charity dinners. You're going after him legally. Maybe publicly first, Julian said. Depends what leverage appears. Nathan turned. And why the secrecy from everyone else, Elena answered this time. Because rich families bury people quietly. NDAs, pressure, surveillance, reputation management. She gave a humorless smile, my professional specialty ironically. Nathan thought of her late nights, whispered calls, changed plans. Not desire, strategy, not betrayal of body, betrayal of trust. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt grief for the version of events he had almost preferred because adultery would have been simpler than this. He picked up his coat. Elena's face tightened. Where are you going? Home. We should talk. We should have. Nathan? He paused at the door but didn't look back. I accused you in my head of every ugly thing possible, he said quietly. And somehow the truth hurts worse. Then he left. In the hallway, the exposed brick swam slightly in his vision. Inside the elevator, he saw himself in the mirrored walls. Successful man, tailored coat. Trembling hands. When the doors opened to the lobby, he realized something devastating. Elena had never cheated on him. But somewhere along the years, they had built a marriage where shame felt safer than honesty. And he didn't know which of them had done more damage. Nathan didn't go home immediately. He drove without destination through streets he had known for 15 years and suddenly recognized nowhere. Chicago at night was all architecture and anonymity. Glass towers lit like aquariums. Corner bars, spilling laughter trains rattling overhead with people heading toward lives that still made sense to them. He crossed the river twice without noticing. At a red light near River North, he caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked like a man who had been spared one disaster and handed another. No affair, no hotel rooms, no secret lover. Instead, something far less cinematic and more intimate. His wife had suffered beside him in silence because she did not believe he was safe enough for the truth. The light turned green behind a chorus of horns. He drove on. When he finally entered the apartment after midnight, every lamp was on. Elena stood by the window, still wearing her coat, arms folded tightly across herself. She had beaten him home. You left me there, she said. You weren't alone. That's not the point. Nathan tossed his keys into the bowl by the door harder than necessary. Then, what is the point is, you broke into a place that wasn't yours and walked out before I could explain. He laughed sharply. You've had 8 months to explain. Her face flinched. Good, some ugly part of him thought. Let it hurt. I was trying to protect something complicated. From me, from everyone. No, he said, stepping closer. Be honest for once. From me. She looked tired enough to collapse. I don't know what you want me to say tonight. The truth would be new. She inhaled slowly the way people do before deciding whether to fight or surrender. What truth? Nathan, that I was ashamed, that I didn't know how to introduce my husband to the brother I found through DNA records and motel photographs. That I needed time, I wanted to be included. You wanted certainty. I wanted honesty. You wanted answers before I had any. Their voices rose, bounced off marble and glass, returned harsher. Nathan walked to the kitchen, then back again, unable to be still. I thought you were sleeping with him. The words hung between them like smoke. Elena shut her eyes. I know. I followed you. I know. I checked your location. I guessed. I searched his social media. I collected receipts. I made a folder on my laptop called taxes. At that, she almost smiled. Almost. Instead, tears filled her eyes. You see, she said softly. See what you turned uncertainty into surveillance. He stared at her. You lied to me. Yes, so don't make me the villain of your story. I'm not. Her voice cracked. I'm telling you why I was afraid. That word silenced him more effectively than anger. Afraid. Elena sank onto the couch and pulled off her coat at last. Underneath, she still wore the cream blouse from work, wrinkled now at the sleeves. Nathan remained standing. She looked smaller sitting there, though nothing about her had ever seemed small. When I met you, she said you were kind, stable, brilliant, calm. You had parents who stayed married, a home people returned to for holidays, photo albums with labels. He frowned. What does that have to do with this everything? She looked around the apartment. You came from a life where love was assumed. I came from one where it disappeared. Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother changed jobs every 6 months. We moved 4 times before I turned 14. Sometimes rent got paid, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes she loved me loudly. Sometimes she vanished into her room for days. He had known pieces of this, not the shape of it. She told me my father was dead for 2 years, Elena continued, then said he was alive but worthless, then said nothing at all. Her hands shook now. When Julian found me, I became 12 again. Nathan's anger, though still present, shifted under the weight of context. You could have told me. I wanted to. Then why didn't you? She looked up at him, and there it was, the wound beneath all the secrecy. Because I didn't know if you loved me, she whispered, or the version of me that had already survived. The room went still. Nathan felt something inside him recoil, not from accusation, but recognition. That's unfair. It's honest. I have loved you for 10 years. You loved the woman who could host dinners, negotiate contracts, remember birthdays, make herself impressive in every room. I loved all of you. You never saw all of me. He stepped back as if distance might clarify things. That's because you hid. Yes, she said, tears falling now. Because I learned young that messy people get left. Nathan sat finally in the armchair opposite her. For the first time in months, they looked directly at each other without distraction. No phones, no dinner plates, no television murmuring in the background. Only damage. I'm not him, Nathan said quietly. I know. I'm not the man who abandons people. I know. Then why treat me like I would? She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Because fear doesn't care what's rational. He had no reply to that. They sat in silence long enough for the refrigerator motor to kick on and off again. Then Nathan said the thing he had avoided even in his own head. I wasn't present. Elena blinked. What? I've been angry about being excluded, but I wasn't exactly available. He looked toward the dark city outside. I was always working, tired, efficient, asking logistical questions instead of real ones. She said nothing. I thought stability was love, he continued. Bills paid, plans made, emergencies handled. It matters, she said. I know, but maybe I used competence to avoid intimacy. The admission tasted strange. Elena's shoulders lowered slightly. You did, she said. He almost laughed at the bluntness. Then came the cruelest moment of honest conversations, the part where truth did not fix anything. Nathan stood and moved toward the bedroom, then stopped in the doorway. Did you ever think of leaving me? Elena took a long time to answer. Yes. He nodded once, absorbing it. For him, he asked before he could stop himself. She stared in disbelief. God, Nathan, for this, for all of it, for a life where I didn't have to hide, she said. That hurt more. He slept in the guest room that night. At 2:13 a.m., he heard Elena crying through the wall. At 2:20, he almost went to her. At 2:21, pride kept him still. By morning, the apartment felt divided into countries with closed borders. They moved around each other carefully. Coffee poured in silence. Cabinets opened and shut. No goodbye kiss. At the door, Elena paused. I never loved Julian that way. I know. That's not what broke us. He met her eyes. No, he said. It isn't. She left. Nathan stood alone in the polished kitchen they had mistaken for a life. He had spent months fearing another man. Now he understood the deeper threat had always been closer. Two people loved each other deeply, and neither had known how to be known. They did not separate in any official sense. No lawyer was called, no boxes were packed, no dramatic declaration was made across a dining table. Instead, they entered the quieter version of collapse that happened in expensive apartments all over America. Two people remained in the same square footage while withdrawing from each other inch by inch. Nathan kept the guest room. Elena kept the bedroom. They shared a kitchen, a coffee machine, utility bills, and the choreography of strangers who knew each other's footsteps too well. Morning became procedural. Elena woke first, showered, dressed, and left by 7:30 most days. Nathan came out 10 minutes later to find coffee already brewed but cooling in the pot. Sometimes she left him a cup beside the machine without note or comment. He never knew whether it was kindness or habit. At night, he heard her moving in the other room, closet doors, sliding drawers, opening, the muted cadence of phone calls she now took openly. Mostly with Julian. The irony was almost comic. Now that there was no deception, every truth still sounded like distance. Work noticed before friends did. Nathan missed a presentation because he forgot the time. He approved a revision with the wrong measurements. During one meeting, a junior associate gently corrected him in front of the room. Afterward, his managing partner, Claire Donnelly, closed the conference room door. "You're distracted," she said. "I'm human. You're expensive. Same issue." He almost smiled. Claire studied him with the brisk compassion of women who had built careers among men who preferred denial. "Marriage." He looked up. Was it that obvious? To anyone over 35. Nathan sat down heavily. She handed him a bottle of water. "You don't have to tell me details, but whatever is happening at home, don't confuse suffering with nobility." What does that mean? It means some people think enduring pain silently makes them deep. She shrugged. Usually it just makes them unavailable. The word followed him all day. Unavailable. At home that evening, Elena had spread files across the dining table. Legal pads, old letters, printed corporate records, a laptop open to a family trust flowchart. The polished oak table where they once hosted candlelit dinners now looked like a war room. Julian sat across from her in shirt sleeves, reading through documents. Nathan stopped in the doorway. Julian glanced up. "Good. The homeowner." "I live here," Nathan said. "A bold claim in this economy." Elena pinched the bridge of her nose. "Please." Nathan set down his briefcase. "What are you doing?" "Preparing," Elena said. For Julian answered, "Your father-in-law's reckoning. He's not my anything." "Fair." Elena turned the laptop toward Nathan. "We found proof Richard Vale used shell transfers to support multiple households quietly while publicly denying paternity claims." Nathan scanned spreadsheets, dates, trust disbursements, signatures. "This could be serious." "That's the hope," Julian said. Nathan looked at Elena. "And what exactly do you want?" She hesitated. Then acknowledgement. The simplicity of it struck him. Not money, not revenge, not headlines. Acknowledgement. To be named after a lifetime of being omitted. Julian left an hour later, taking 2 banker's boxes. At the door, he paused beside Nathan. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I don't enjoy being the symbol of your marital failures." Nathan stared at him. Julian added, "But I'm enjoying being right about your communication style." Then he left. Nathan almost laughed despite himself. Elena continued sorting papers after the apartment quieted. Nathan stood in the kitchen pouring water he did not want. "You trust him," he said. She did not look up. "Yes. More than me." "No." The answer came quickly enough to sound true, slowly enough to hurt. "I trust him differently," she added. "What does that mean?" "It means he knows where I come from." Nathan leaned against the counter. "And I don't." "You could," she said softly. "If you asked before everything was on fire." He had no defense ready. That weekend they attended separate obligations for the first time in years. Elena went to meet attorneys with Julian. Nathan drove alone to the suburbs for his mother's birthday dinner. His parents' house looked unchanged since childhood. Trim hedges, polished hardwood floors, framed family photos in chronological order. Evidence of continuity hung on every wall. His mother hugged him tightly. "Where's Elena working?" His father glanced over the newspaper. "On a Saturday, A pause, loaded with generational judgment. During dinner, his parents discussed neighbors' taxes, travel plans, safe subjects curated over decades. Nathan watched them move around each other with practiced ease. Then he saw what he had never named before. His parents were not emotionally transparent people. They were reliable people. He had mistaken the two as identical. After cake, his mother found him alone in the den. "You look sad," she said. I'm tired. Nathan. He sat on the arm of the sofa like a teenager again. Did Dad ever tell you when he was scared, he asked? She smiled sadly. Your father would rather eat gravel. Did you mind? Sometimes. How did you stay married? She thought for a moment. We learned late that loyalty without vulnerability becomes loneliness. The sentence landed with frightening precision. Did we learn in time? He asked. She squeezed his hand. That depends whether either of you still wants to. He returned downtown after dark. Elena was asleep on the couch, files spread around her like fallen leaves, reading glasses low on her nose, one lamp left on. Nathan stood there a long time. This woman had fought to become polished enough for rooms that once excluded her. Then she discovered the exclusion had begun at birth, and he who claimed to love her had mostly loved the version that required least from him. He gathered the files carefully into neat stacks. One folder slipped open. Inside was a legal intake form. Client name, Elena Marie Vale, proposed amendment pending. He froze. She had written the surname, not Reed, not because she had left him, because she was trying on the name of the man who had never given it. A child's wound disguised as paperwork. He closed the folder gently. The next morning, he made coffee for both of them. When Elena entered, surprised to see 2 mugs, he gestured toward the chair opposite him. She sat cautiously. I went to my parents' house yesterday, he said. Okay. I realized something unpleasant. That narrows nothing. He almost smiled. I learned how to provide without revealing, how to stay calm instead of being honest. Elena held the mug with both hands. Nathan, I've been angry that you hid from me. He looked directly at her, but I was hiding too. Mine just looked respectable. Her eyes filled but did not spill. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know if we survive this, she flinched. But if we don't, he continued, voice unsteady. Now I want the truth to be that we failed, honestly, not elegantly. Silence trembled between them. Then Elena whispered, I don't know how to trust that yet. That makes 2 of us. Later that week, she left for the first formal meeting with the Vale family attorneys. At the door, coat on, jaw set, she looked like a woman entering battle. Nathan handed her the folder she'd forgotten. Their fingers touched briefly. Good luck, he said. She searched his face. Thank you. When the elevator doors closed, Nathan stood alone in the hallway and understood the choice. Before him was not between pride and surrender. It was between staying emotionally absent because it felt safer, or risking love without guarantees. For the first time in years, he knew which one frightened him more. The hearing was held in a private conference suite on the 39th floor of a downtown law tower overlooking Lake Michigan. Of course it was. Nathan thought there was something almost poetic about powerful families conducting moral emergencies above the city where consequences looked small from a distance. He stood in the lobby with a visitor badge clipped to his coat, watching elevators open and close around men in navy suits and women carrying leather portfolios. Everyone moved quickly, as if urgency itself were a status symbol. He had not told Elena he was coming. He wasn't sure whether she would want him there. He wasn't sure he deserved to be. But at 8:57 a.m., when the elevator doors opened and she stepped out with Julian beside her, she saw him immediately. She stopped. Julian followed her gaze, then muttered, well, unexpected character growth. Nathan ignored him. Elena approached slowly. You came. Yes. Why? He considered lying with something elegant. Instead, he said, because some rooms are harder to enter alone. Her expression changed, not softened exactly, but opened by a fraction. Julian adjusted his tie. If anyone needs me, I'll be over there, pretending not to cry. He walked off toward the coffee station. Nathan and Elena stood facing each other among strangers. You didn't have to, she said. I know, thank you. He nodded once. It was enough for now. The conference room itself was colder than necessary. Glass walls, long walnut table, water pitchers sweating onto coasters, a skyline designed to intimidate people who came from smaller places. At one side sat attorneys for Vale Holdings family office, expensive, polished, unreadable. At the other sat Elena Julian and their counsel, a woman in her 60s named Marianne Cho, whose calm suggested she had dismantled richer men before breakfast. Nathan took a chair against the wall behind them. Then the final door opened. Richard Vale entered. He was older than the photographs, but still carried wealth the way some men carried cologne, heavily, automatically. Silver hair, tailored charcoal suit, the composed face of someone accustomed to being introduced rather than questioned. He looked first at the attorneys, then at Julian, then at Elena. For a flicker of a second, his certainty failed. Nathan saw it happen. The shock of resemblance. His own face remained polite, but his hands clasped tighter. Richard recovered quickly. "This is unfortunate," he said. Julian leaned back. "That's one word for decades of abandonment." Marianne lifted a hand. "We'll begin with civility." Richard sat. His gaze returned to Elena, lingering there in a way that was almost human. "You look like your mother," he said quietly. Elena did not blink. "You don't get to use her now." The room went still. Nathan felt something move through him, rage on behalf of a pain he had not lived. Hours passed in statements, timelines, documents, and the bloodless language wealthy institutions used to discuss intimate harm, transfers, support disbursements, discretionary arrangements, reputational risk. Children became liabilities in passive voice. At one point, Julian laughed so sharply an associate flinched. At another, Elena read aloud a letter her mother had written 30 years ago, asking only for acknowledgement and medical support. Richard listened without expression. Nathan wanted to hate him simply. But what he saw was smaller than a monster, and sadder than when a man who had built success around compartments so rigid he no longer knew how to be whole. When Elena finished reading, Richard cleared his throat. "I made mistakes," Julian muttered, historic understatement. Marianne silenced him with a glance. Richard looked directly at Elena. "I thought paying quietly was mercy." "No," she said. "It was convenience." The words landed harder than any shouting could have. By early afternoon, an agreement was drafted. Private recognition of paternity, revisions to trust records, medical history disclosure, confidential settlements available to other children if identified. Money, yes, but also names. Paper could not repair childhood. Still, paper mattered. When the meeting adjourned, chairs moved back and everyone became busy with signatures, handshakes, logistics. Richard approached Elena cautiously. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," she said. "I was young. You were 42. He winced. Nathan watched her, then not as wife, not as opponent, but as someone standing upright in the room, built to diminish her. She had never looked more herself. Outside the tower, the wind off the lake cut sharp and clean. Julian hugged Elena first. "Well," he said, voice rougher than usual, "we remain deeply dysfunctional." She laughed through tears. "Call me later. I'll call never and text immediately." He glanced at Nathan. "Take care of her. Or at least improve noticeably." Then he walked toward a waiting rideshare, shoulders looser than Nathan had ever seen. Elena and Nathan were left alone on the plaza. Traffic moved below. Flags snapped overhead. She exhaled long and slow. "I thought I'd feel different. You probably will tomorrow, maybe." They began walking without choosing a direction. They ended up by the river near a bench where tourists took photos in warmer months. Now it was mostly empty, the city stripped down by cold. Elena sat first. Nathan remained standing, then sat beside her with a careful inch of distance between them. For a while neither spoke. Then Elena said, "I was cruel to you sometimes." He looked over. "I was scared." She continued, "But fear doesn't excuse cruelty." Nathan nodded. "I was cruel too," he said, just in a more respectable tone. That made her laugh once. He continued, "I made you earn safety in ways I didn't understand. I listened for efficiency, not emotion. I wanted problems solvable. You wanted architecture. I married weather." She smiled despite herself. The silence after that was warmer. He turned toward her fully. "I need to say something without defending it. Okay, I was relieved when I thought you were cheating." She frowned. "Not because I wanted it," he said quickly. "Because it would have made me innocent." Her eyes filled. "That's honest," she whispered. "I know." She wiped a tear with the back of her glove. "Then here's mine," she said. "Part of me wanted you to chase me, to notice, to force the truth out because I didn't know how to offer it." He absorbed that slowly. "So we were both waiting for the other person to be braver." Yes, they sat with that. No excuses left, only pattern. The river moved dark beneath them. Nathan reached over and placed his hand palm up on the bench between them. Not grabbing, not pleading. An offer. Elena stared at it for several seconds. Then she placed her hand in his. Cold fingers, familiar shape. "I don't know if we become what we were," she said. "I don't want what we were." She looked at him. "Good," she said. He squeezed lightly. "I can't promise forever today. I'm not asking." "I can promise truth," she said. He nodded. "I can promise to hear it without turning into a courtroom. That would help." They both laughed, quiet and tired. Dusk settled over Chicago, turning glass towers amber. Around them, strangers hurried home to dinners, screens, pets, children, loneliness, hope. Ordinary lives. Nathan realized grand love stories often ended in declarations because fiction preferred certainty. Real ones began again in smaller ways. A bench, a confession, a hand not pulled away. They rose when the cold became too sharp. As they walked back toward the street, there was still distance between them. But now it was honest distance, and that for the first time in years felt crossable.